Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. You may or may not realise that recently I have started playing Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, and I have been posting videos on my channel showing how we have been getting on. We have currently gone through 3 sessions, we have another session lined up, which we will be recording as well. And I am enjoying it a lot more than I guess I thought I would. The closest I've come to role-playing in the past would probably be playing the extended rules for the original Warhammer Quest, where I worked as the games master for a group of friends and kind of built dungeons with stories and things, but it wasn't really role-playing, it was still a board game at the end of the day. So this is kind of our first real experience. It's the first experience for the rest of the group that I'm playing with as well. So what I thought at this stage, I thought it might be interesting for someone to kind of get a perspective of me. I'm over 30 years a board gamer and tabletop miniatures gamer, war gamer. So yeah, I thought it might be interesting to get a perspective, my perspective as someone new to Dungeons & Dragons and someone coming from a board game and miniatures game background, what my take is and what I think are good things to take on board, good lessons to know prior to playing Dungeons & Dragons for the first time. I guess one of the things that I've really enjoyed about Dungeons & Dragons, besides, you know, messing about with my mates and having a bit of a laugh, is it's really given me the opportunity to paint lots of different stuff. As someone, a painter, but someone who gets bored of painting large units of things and groups of things, Dungeons & Dragons is great for that, because I've been painting up heroes for the characters, NPCs, and then when I know what sessions are coming up, I sort of think, well, what monsters are they likely to face in the next coming session? And I'll quickly whip up paint jobs for those models. But in terms of lessons learned, I think the most important one from the Dungeon Master's perspective is to be prepared. We are playing Lost Mine of Phandelver from the Dungeons & Dragons starter set, and I am absolutely amazed at the amount of content in that starter set. The adventure alone is hours and hours of gameplay. We've been playing for 3 sessions, and each session is running sort of 6 hours, and we've only just gone around the first town, which unlocks a range of the missions and progresses the main storyline a little bit. And yeah, so we've been playing all this time, and there's so much content. There's so many non-player characters. There's so many branching narratives and little secrets and things to know, and it's a really good idea for the Dungeon Master to be as prepared as possible. And that doesn't just mean reading the rules and getting a good grasp for how to handle various different situations, but just to be prepared in as much as you've read ahead in the storyline, you know roughly the route that the adventurers should be taking and what you can drip feed to them, what information they need to know, what characters they're likely to meet, so you can think ahead what information they're going to get from those characters and how you're going to play those situations out. You don't want to get to a situation where they go into a town and go, okay, we're going to go and talk to the town master, and then you go, well, hold on a minute, I've just got to read this section of the book and figure out what the town master knows. You want to be able to go, yep, go to see the town master, and they go in and you immediately know what the town master has to say, or at least a vague outline. I mean, maybe highlight sections in the adventure book, things like that, and just plan ahead. And it's also a good idea to really kind of get a good feel for the rules, but also how you may need to use those rules in situations that you aren't expecting. It wasn't very long before my hero party started. They went into a cave with some goblins, and I was thinking they were just going to charge in and fight the goblins and there was going to be a bloodbath, and then they said, well, hold on a minute, maybe we can trick the goblins. And I won't go into too much information what they've done, but if you've seen the video, they manipulate some of the surroundings to terrify the goblins by making it appear like a deity had appeared before them, demanding certain things from them. And it was really cool. And the more you know about the rules and how you can use them in certain situations, the smoother those situations go. But it is also good for the players to be prepared. With the starter set, you get pre-generated characters, because creating your own characters in Dungeons and Dragons is a big thing, and there's a lot to do. It's not just rolling a few dice and going, okay, these are my hit points and this is my strength. You need to have a background and a narrative and everything else. So the starter set does a really good job of creating those characters, and every character has got a bit of background that weaves into the main plot, some subsidiary things that might link to side quests, certain character traits, and it's a really good idea for your players to read their character sheets, to have picked characters in advance, read the character sheets and know a bit what's going on. I had one player who didn't really study his character sheet in advance, and spent the first adventure not taking full advantage of his main strengths. His main strength was that he was an archer. He had huge bonuses to his archer attacks, and he spent the whole combat using his sword and failing miserably. And it was just once he realised that he was an expert archer, he altered the way he played the character and has now flourished. He's kicking tail wherever he goes. But that's just like a minor example of why it's a good idea to know more about your characters, particularly if you've got spellcasters. They need to kind of know what their spells do and what they can do with those spells. So it's a good idea just to have a little bit of preparation time to get that going. It's not like a board game where you sit down and go, okay, you've got access to 2 spells, they do this and this, and then you can just go. You really need to know that you've got spells that it may not even work in combat situations, but they can be used to manipulate your environment and things like that. And the more they know, the more likely they are to think outside the box and come up with interesting new things they can do, and the more fun the whole session will be. I think Dungeons and Dragons, if you just play it that they go into different dungeons and fight the monsters just rolling dice, it's going to get stale quickly. What Dungeons and Dragons does is it creates a framework for you to invent a story. And a story is never just, we walked into the cave and stabbed the monsters. So I think that's an important thing for the players to have that time with their characters beforehand. I mean, that's the joy of making your own character, is, you know, you breathe life into it, so you know that. But if you're using a pre-gen character, spend some time with the character sheet and figure out how your character fits into the framework of the story. So that when the Dungeon Master says, oh, and there's someone who's gone up to Thunder Tree, you can go, well, hold on a minute, I want to go to Thunder Tree because that's where my parents were from, or whatever. But yeah, and I guess the other thing is, don't take things for granted. I didn't explain that there were shops where they could replenish their things. Our archer was reluctant to use his arrows a lot of the time because he was worried he might never get any more, or wouldn't get any more for a very long time, shall we say. So yeah, it's good to make sure people that are playing are aware of that. Say, well, okay, you don't need to, you're not in the middle of the wilderness where you're never going to be able to get arrows again. You can use your arrows, and yeah, just be a little bit obvious at times. I think when people first play Dungeons and Dragons, or what I've noticed, is that it takes a little while to get up to speed with the idea that you can pretty much do whatever you want within the realms of the physics of the world. So it's not like a board game where you've got, okay, I can move and shoot, or I can move and attack. You've got anything that a human can do, or you can do, and it takes a little bit of time to get into that mindset and start thinking, well, here's a monster, but rather than just killing it, why don't we capture it and interrogate it and find out if it knows something that we need to know? And that's something that when you first start playing, I think the Dungeon Master can maybe... I've done it a couple of times where I've not been particularly obtuse about a quest. I've just gone, hey, I've got a quest for you if you want to go on a quest, because sometimes it just helps things along just while people are settling into it and learning what they can do and learning what you as the Dungeon Master can do. I mean, I think good Dungeon Masters can weave a story in such a way that they can drip that information out to the players, and they will gradually, naturally get to those situations. But sometimes it's okay just to go, hey, you know what? Maybe you might want to try capturing one of these goblins rather than just killing them all. and that sort of thing. So particularly in those early stages, once they're into the swing of it, and once they kind of know that, hey, hold on, can we climb up here? Can we do this? Can we go around the back here? Can we avoid this fight completely? Can we, once they're in that mindset, you don't need to be so obvious anymore. Another thing, and a big thing for me as a board gamer and miniatures gamer, is I recommend using miniatures and maps. I don't think my group would enjoy Dungeons & Dragons at all if I wasn't drawing maps, painting miniatures, having miniatures on the table so they could visualize where they are in those confrontations. Obviously you don't need them when you're walking around town and things like that, but in combat situations it's just really helpful. And it's I'm very much a board gamer, so it's really helpful for me to be able to visualize the scene and say, okay, so these goblins are here, they can move this far, they're going to be able to attack this here and here. The starter set, the Lost Mine of Phandelver Dungeons & Dragons starter set, doesn't come with any facilities for making maps or anything, but I bought a Pathfinder wipe clean mat. And before we do a session, I kind of look ahead, figure out what maps we may need, and I draw them up so that I've got them ready, and then I use paper and I blue tack paper over the map in sections so that as they explore through the maps I can just take off that paper section and say, here's the new section of the map. I'm sure there are a lot of people who prefer theatre of the mind, but for me and my group, I think we really do need the miniatures, the maps and the miniatures. It does help. What else was there? I guess when we first decided to do Dungeons & Dragons, I wasn't planning on role-playing. I'm not the kind of person who would do role-playing and put on the different funny voices and things like that. And for our first session, I didn't really do it at all, but then there wasn't really a lot of calls for it. In our second one, I did kind of role-play a goblin at one point, and it was just stupid and silly, but I had quite good fun doing it. In our third session, we went into the town, which is just loads of NPCs, and I just went, oh, to heck with it. I'm going to roleplay all the characters, and I came up with a half dozen vaguely similar stupid voices, and casually drifted between them whilst playing the same character because I'm not in any way an actor and wasn't able to hold the accents and things like that. But I do think, I guess you'd have to ask my gaming group what they thought, but I enjoyed it a lot more, and I kind of sort of stopped worrying about making myself look like a doofus and just went with it, and I thought it made it more fun. Hopefully anybody who watches the video will think it was more fun, and hopefully my group thought it was more fun than me just saying, okay, you go and see this person tells you this information, which was, I think, my original intention. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing the role-playing, so I think if you've never done role-playing before and you're reluctant to do it, just give it a go. And if you've got certain people in your group that are reluctant to do it, don't force them into doing it, but if they do give it a shot, don't take the mickey out of them, because I think it's a big thing really for people who don't roleplay to give it a go. I mean, even among friends and stuff, I mean, it's it's kind of a different thing. I think don't take the mickey out of each other, and just give it a go and see what happens. And if you don't like it, don't force people to do it, because I guess my main takeaway from what I've learned playing Dungeons & Dragons is you just don't take it seriously, unless you want to take it seriously. There's going to be different groups of people that treat Dungeons & Dragons, or like with anything, like with board games or video games, that some people want to be very serious and they want to get good, and then there's people like my group where we are messing around we're having an absolute blast, but that we will regularly spiral off into Skyrim references or Red Dead references or Lord of the Rings references. We will just suddenly just go off on a complete tangent and talk a load of nonsense, which you won't ever have seen because it'll all get cut from the video before we do it. But if people want to play it seriously and be in character the whole time, that's fine. That's how your group plays. But I think you need to play to the strength of your group, and my group, we're kind of in it for the yucks really, and we're not taking it too seriously, whilst at the same time we're not taking it seriously. We are, You can see my adventures. They're making notes. They're trying to figure out clues. They want to win. They want to progress the adventure, but they're quite happy to drift out of character and mess around. So I think that's made it a lot more fun as well, because we've not restricted ourselves in that way. I guess it could cause a problem if some of you want to be very serious and some of you want to mess around, but then I guess if you've got the luxury of having 2 groups, do that. Split them up, or find a main way you want to do it. But I think if you force people to go a certain route with how they're going to handle the game, they won't have fun and they will probably drift away anyway. But anyway, so that is it. That's my initial thoughts and feelings, having played a few sessions of Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, like I say, we've played less than 20 hours at the moment, but it's 3 sessions with another session coming. So these are not the words of an expert. These are not the words of someone with any great in-depth knowledge or know-how. It's just someone who's come from a very specific type of board game and miniature gaming, and has come into this role-playing environment, and sort of what I've learned and what I feel has helped me and my group, and how I think we're going to proceed going forwards. But that is it from me. I hope you found this interesting. If not, then I guess I apologise for wasting your time, and hopefully you'll tune in again next time when I'll be saying something that you do find interesting. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.